Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in. A very important topic we're going to be discussing today on the show. We didn't see this, a lot of us didn't see this coming, but we need to address UFOs and God. And I've got an award-winning filmmaker and author who has done movies on this. He's researched this, and he's got a brand new book coming out that you can pre-order. Let's get it up right now. The website is UFOsandGodBook.com. UFOsandGodBook.com. It'll be on all the outlets, but you can pre-order. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Derrick Warfel, author and filmmaker, coming to us from Florida. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me today.
All right, so you've done a lot of work in Hollywood and the film industry, and yet 40 years, I think you said, and now you see the necessity of putting out a book on this kind of topic. So would you please share a little bit of your background in the movie making, documentaries with our audience, Derrick?
Sure, yeah. I went to Princeton University undergraduate, felt that, obviously the Lord Jesus was an important part of my life, and I worked with Campus Crusade for 8 years. Part of that time I went to Dallas Seminary because I felt that I needed to know more of the Bible if I was going to get involved in communicating biblical truth. And I noticed your thing is about worldview. My thesis at Dallas was on worldview and how media affects that. So I really think that's important. Then got out and I found I wanted to work in film. So I got to University of Southern California, the film school there, and graduated with an MFA and promptly became unemployed because there's 100 people looking for every one job in Hollywood. But I kind of, did some day gigs, real estate, sub-teaching, continued to write. And when I realized that writers don't always have the power, I got into producing and produced produced 8 feature films, a lot of shorts, rewrites, all kinds of stuff. And this last one was something that I just felt as I kind of having more time and not working quite as much full time, I began to see a lot of things on Ancient Aliens on History Channel and all Stephen Greer on all the documentaries online. And I just was surprised because it's so wrong. What can I say? I mean, I think these people are sincere people, but they don't realize what they're doing. And the same thing with Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day. I mean, this is very dangerous material.
Why
we're
is
not.
that?
Well, how can I say it?
Are the messages subtle in his, like in the new movie?
Well, yes, they are, but you have to realize what is ultimately behind this. It's not simply, as Ephesians 6:12 says, we do not struggle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, world forces of darkness, and spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. This is the entire fallen angelic realm. These are very intelligent, very powerful beings. When God created angels before he created us, he created them to do all his work. He created them very powerful, very intelligent. 1/3 of them decided to rebel against God and have been at war with him ever since. And they are not stupid. They're very smart. They try every tactic. If you don't believe me, just look at how many times you've fallen into temptation. You say, I'll never do that again. And then you do it again because they're very smart about how they trick you. And they've been tricking us ever since the Garden of Eden. Look at how Satan tricked Eve. But you can look at all the civilizations, ancient Near Eastern gods, ancient Egyptian gods, the Greek and Roman gods, which were nothing like the myths that came down to us, but were probably angelic beings who deceive people, the Arabic jinn, ghosts, poltergeists, all the paranormal realm, I believe is related together. It's all part of a strategy to
Hmm.
turn people away from God. We
Interesting.
don't struggle against flesh and blood. We
Hmm.
struggle against very intelligent beings that seek to deceive us. And this thing with the only thing that's different about this is there's flying saucers that we can track. This is just, I mean, remember I said they're very intelligent beings. If we can create spacecraft, so can they. If we can create robots, so can they. Uh, it just serves their purpose in a modern scientific age to use kind of modern scientific things. They use the type of technology that people are used to.
Hmm.
In the late 1800s, it was blimps. In the World War II, it was orbs of light floating around fighter jets called orbs. What are they
Hmm.
called? Foo fighters. Now it's spaceships. They're very smart in tempting us and deceiving us. And so my thing is to warn people because I just see, it's like when every cult that came along, the church was just unprepared. It kind of hit
Yes.
you on the side.
Hmm.
And the same thing exists in terms of, I give an example in the book, like when Lyle and Darwin were basically making a case that, God did not create the world, but in fact, it came about by evolution. And at the time that came out, I've got to believe that most of the Christians didn't even pay attention to it at all in the mid 1800s. But today, you cannot go to a university that does not have evolution as its foundation.
Yep.
And I mean, right now, people just kind of dismiss this UFO thing because, oh, it's just stupid. We've been joking about it for years. But you know what? It's gaining traction. That's what scares me. It's
Yes,
gaining
it is.
traction. And people need to understand, like the film Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day basically whitewashes the whole problem. And you need to be aware because it says, oh, these beings are helpful. We need to listen to them. They can help us. And the bottom line is we give in the film and in the book countless examples of people's lives have been destroyed by these beings.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
I think the thing is the church needs to be aware because this, I believe, maybe it hasn't hit the tipping point yet or critical mass, but I believe it is coming, that this
Yeah.
is a major thing that's going to take over.
Well, there's a reason I wanted to have you on, and that is because there's more press on this, more awareness, more talk about UFOs. And for Christians, we need to know how to respond to this and have that biblical worldview, not be shaken in our faith, because God's not surprised by any of this. But Derrick, I want to go back to something you said about how Hollywood shapes our views. You said entertainment doesn't just reflect what culture believes, it shapes it. And Ancient Aliens is a show that's been running for 20 plus seasons, and you say tens of millions of people have watched it. And now that basically, so people have these assumptions going ahead to this movie by Spielberg or hearing what our government is saying about UFOs. So share your concerns about that, please.
Well, I think the thing that's interesting to me is that at some level, Ancient Aliens is saying the same thing I'm saying. It says that all this paranormal and supernatural world is connected. Ghosts, poltergeists, Edgar Casey, basically Greek and Roman gods, all of it's somehow connected, that there's something else that they've been saying that these beings have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. And at the head of their show, they say, we are not alone. In fact, it's primary message in Spielberg's film, we are not alone. We've never been alone. And I agree with that. The problem is they're not who you think they are.
Hmm.
They're deceivers. I mean, there's a quote by a French writer called Baudelaire that says, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Because if you're not
Yeah.
aware of who your enemy is, Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, you're going to be defeated every time. So, in fact, the whole occult world, the word occult means hidden things. hidden in, and Jesus says this himself, men did not come to the light lest their deeds be revealed. And in the same way, these fallen angels don't come to the light. They kind of poke in and then they poke out, and
Interesting.
they
Yeah.
sow doubt in your
Mm.
mind. And the thing that's scary to me is there's a former ER doctor called Stephen Greer who has a number of documentaries online on Netflix and Amazon. And he says that we cannot wait for the government to open up the doors to speak to these beings. We have to reach out to them ourselves. And
Mm.
he says, I have come up with a technology where you can personally, individually reach out these aliens yourself. And you know what that technology is? Transcendental meditation.
Oh my goodness.
And those of us who study TM know that it's basically an offshoot of Hinduism.
Yeah.
They will tell you in TM that it's a technology. It's not. It basically, when you go for initiation, you have to bring an offering. They don't tell you it's an offering, like an apple or something. Then you have to listen to chant certain words of adoration towards an ascended master. And at the end of the initiation ceremony, they give you a mantra. Of course, you've heard of mantra, something you're supposed to
Yeah.
repeat.
Yeah.
Most of the times, this mantra is the name of an ascended Hindu god in Sanskrit. So I mean, that doesn't sound like technology to me,
No,
you
not
know.
at all.
And you see these documentaries with Stephen Greer where they're sitting on the hilltops and they're in the TM pose and they're basically mentally reaching out to these beings. And you see these little orbs of light, perhaps in the Elizabethan England, they would have called them fairies, floating around people. And I'm thinking to myself, they're calling demons to themselves.
Hmm.
That is just insane. I mean, it's like you have to understand, basically, to a large extent, there has to be an open door for these fallen angels, these demonic type beings to enter into our lives. You have to,
Hmm.
like, for instance, if you get a tarot card reading, if you practice TM, if you do certain higher levels of yoga, if you, basically take drugs, you're opening yourself up to these beings to come in and control you. I mean, even remember the film Beetlejuice? He says,
Yes. Yes.
say my name 3 times.
Yep.
Well, why would he see that? Because you're you're inviting them in. I can help you if you
Great
say my name,
example. Yeah.
and so the concept is that if you take drugs, if you get drunk, if you basically lower your defenses,
Hmm.
you're
Wow.
opening yourself up to, I hate to use the word demonic because these are much higher than what we think of as demonic beings. I
Hmm.
think, we think of demons as a fat little guy in a skin tight red suit with horns and a pitchfork. These beings are very intelligent. They will pretend, they'll put out a straw man so you basically, oh, I don't believe in that, but
Yeah.
and we think that the demons are always like the demons that Jesus confronted who, had people, beings within them, writhing, spitting up pea soup, whatever, they're much more intelligent. They say, like, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, world forces of darkness, spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. One of those in the Bible is referred to as the Prince of Persia. So
Mhm.
these are
Yes.
powerful beings. Often there's higher levels, there's lower levels.
Yeah.
But if we can create spacecraft, oh my gosh, they can do stuff far better than us. And you
Yeah.
look at these flying saucers, they will travel, we have estimated, between 40,000 and 500,000 miles an hour and then just disappear. Okay, we can't do that. That's like the lowest level is like Mach 50. Our fastest fighter jets are Mach 3 or Mach 5. I mean, they are much better than us. They can create robots. If we can create robots that are almost lifelike, they can create much even better robots. And so some of these beings that we encounter may not even be the spiritual fallen angel themselves. It could be uh, robotic beings that are, they're in another place,
Interesting.
controlling them. For example, when we send a spaceship to Mars, we can't live on Mars, but we have machines that can, and we can control them from here.
Yes.
Well, it seems that to a certain extent, they don't have absolute access to our three-dimensional space. At least the fallen angels don't. And so they might be sending, some of these gray aliens may be in fact very robotic beings. I mean, we can create robots ourselves that are almost lifelike.
Yeah.
Now imagine if we had technology 1,000 years advanced from where we are today. We could do some amazing things.
This is fascinating, Derrick. I want to ask you a follow-up question because I understand that this is all possible, and the Bible speaks to the different dimensions, the different spirits, different levels, and what I think a lot of people are wondering if we're seeing these things, or if there are spacecraft, or like you say, robots. Where do they create these things? Do they have a home base? Is this just another dimension and they're getting into ours? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm gonna jumping ahead here. I'll talk about that. And I'm going to backtrack, but first
Okay.
of all, yeah, I believe they're extra dimensional beings. They're not intergalactic beings. I'll come back to that. Why? Because
Okay.
the world right now, the narrative is they're coming from a foreign galaxy, a foreign planet. I don't believe that, and
Okay.
I believe that we can prove that they're interdimensional beings. In fact, one of the people who study the subject to the greatest degree is a guy called Jacques Vallée. And he spoke, I believe, before the UN. He says they're interdimensional beings. They're trying to build a narrative that they're intergalactic beings, but they're not. That's what they're trying to prove, because that's more palatable to us than interdimensional. Because as soon as you talk about interdimensional, you talk about heaven. You talk
Yes.
about other beings. You talk about supernatural beings. And in a scientific world where it's just not cool to admit that evolution doesn't work, and that there's interdimensional beings, and that there's a God that created everything, the idea of intergalactic beings is far more acceptable to the science community.
Mm-hmm.
But so where was I going with this? Oh, the idea that basically they are interdimensional. Let me give you an example. The Bible doesn't use the word interdimensional, but take the most common example of this. The shepherds on the hills at night saw a host of angels all of a sudden appear,
Yes.
sing, and then disappear.
Interesting. Yes.
Where did they go? Did they go up to Mars or Jupiter or Venus or another galaxy? No, they went to another dimension. And like, for instance, if there's a dimension right alongside the dimension we are, as Hugh Ross said, they could be, I don't know if I can get this on the screen here. They could be that close to us and we can't see them
Mm-hmm.
because they're in another dimension. And there's countless examples of this in the Bible. The angels that visited Lot, where did they come from? Where did they go to? You
Exactly.
know,
Yes.
the angel that picked up Philip from the desert when he was sharing and taking him back to where he was. Where did he come from? Where did he go to? I mean, they can transition between three dimensions and a higher dimension, possibly even immediately. Uh,
Interesting.
it's a little hard to conceive this, but there's some examples.
Yes. I mean, it
Let me
makes
give an
sense.
example.
Go ahead.
Let me give an example. Like, if you've seen the film The Last Action Hero, okay?
I remember
You have
that one.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is on two-dimensional movie screen taking out the bad guys. There's a little boy in the theater watching this in three-dimensional space. At a
Huh.
certain point in the story, Schwarzenegger comes out of the two-dimensional movie screen, talks to the boy, and the boy and Arnold go back into a two-dimensional movie screen, you know? And basically what we have is angels, maybe six-dimensional angels that are coming into three-dimensional space and going
Hmm.
back. We can't do that. We are
Right.
limited. And the people who study these spacecraft say that they do not follow our laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
They can, like I said, go faster than we can go. They can then just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have a sonic boom when they enter our atmosphere. We can't do that.
Yeah.
They don't have a jet propulsion flame at the back. We can't do that. They're using other physics that we don't have. And so basically, I believe that they are interdimensional beings. And when you're talking about interdimensional beings, you're talking about God, you're talking about heaven, you're talking about angels, and these are fallen angels. And I spent a whole chapter in the book talking about holy angels, fallen angels. The Bible
Okay.
talks a lot more about holy angels, but you can assume that fallen angels would have most of the same abilities. Perhaps not all,
Yes.
because they're fallen. Maybe they've
Hmm.
lost some of those abilities,
Hmm.
but they are very deceptive. Okay, let me to backtrack one. Just give me this a second. Is that
Sure.
how do you know they're not coming from a foreign galaxy? Because
Yeah.
the things that they lie to you, they tell you, oh, we're from the moon. We're from Venus. We're from Mars. We're from Jupiter. We're from the Zeta Reticula galaxy or star system. And basically, how do you know that's not possible? Well, Hugh Ross at Reasons to Believe completely destroys. He's an astrophysicist, and his whole organization does three things. I wish I could go in more. I have go in more detail in the book. First of all, there's no other planet like Earth. For many years, people thought there's got to be billions of planets just like Earth, a certain distance from the star that they circle. Well, he brings up there's 14 highly tuned constants that if they're off just a little bit, advanced life is not. For instance, the tilt of the Earth. For
Yeah.
example, the moon system that we have, the certain distance, certain circulation, the asteroid belt, the fact that there's what is it, 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen. If a lot of these ratios were just off by a little bit, it wouldn't be able to support life. That really, Earth is very unique. It's possible there's billions of planets out there and there's no one like Earth. And even if there was, it might be on the other side of 100 billion light year galaxy that we'd never connect with them. That's the second reason. They can't travel. The fastest we could travel is the speed of light, and we can't even travel the speed of light. That's we don't have the energy to do that. Even if we could travel 1/10 the speed of light, the space dust would tear whatever ship we build to pieces. It wouldn't get there. The other thing is just to get to the what is it? It's the Andromeda, Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star to us, 4.3 light years. A light year is the distance light travels in a year, which is about 6 trillion miles. Okay, that's a lot. And I calculated that the Voyager 1 spacecraft, Voyager 2, travel about 38,000 miles an hour when they're in space and there's no friction. Uh, Traveling at 38,000 miles an hour, do you know how long it would take to get to the Alpha Centauri?
No.
75,000 years.
Oh my
And even
goodness.
if you'd go 10 times that fast, it would be 7.5 thousand years. Now you say, well, Star Trek says you can go 10 times the speed of light.
Ha!
Well, that's fiction. I mean,
Yeah.
as a writer, I come up with all kinds of ideas just to see what would happen if you did this. And so, yeah, so I mean, basically, but there's no way we can do that. The last thing is evolution.
Hmm.
Um, at Reasons to Believe, they also said mathematicians have been tapping evolutionary biologists on the shoulder for like decades and saying, guys, this evolution by chance and time just doesn't work. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't work. Like, and they did a calculation at Reasons to Believe that just to get one simple bacterium, not even advanced life, simple bacterium,
Yeah.
the odds are 10 to the 556 power to 1. That's
Jeez.
10 followed by 556 zeros to 1. Okay, by comparison, to win the California State Lottery, you just need 10 to the ninth power to 1. What a bargain. That's like literally so simply because of the distance to travel. There's no planet like Earth, and evolution by chance just couldn't happen. And even if it did happen, maybe it happens on the other edge of the universe, which is 100 billion light years wide. So I think you're not going to have these beings popping back and forth. And frankly, even your UFO people today are saying, you know, I think that maybe it's interdimensional beings. And maybe they're not traveling to Earth. Maybe they've been here all along. And so, there's this thing. And if they've been here all along, well, as Christians, we believe that Satan was here in the Garden
Yeah.
of Eden.
Yeah.
And
That's
there's
right.
there's obviously, when Daniel was fighting, it was talking to a holy angel, they were talking about fighting unholy angels here on earth. So,
Yeah.
now obviously I'm giving a very brief overview of this.
Yes.
In the book, I go into more detail if you're one of the detailed people. So I give a lot of footnotes, a lot of examples, a lot of quotes from the Bible. And so basically, but let me just give one more thing. So some people say, well, okay, maybe God created interdimensional beings, and maybe that's what they are. They're not evil beings, they're not evil angels. Well, the Bible gives us tests.
Hmm.
The Apostle John says, test the spirit because not every spirit is of God.
Yes.
Okay. And
Amen.
there's two tests. One is the doctrinal test. The Apostle John says, those who do not say Jesus came in the flesh are not of God. The Apostle Paul says, if even an angel teaches a different gospel than the one we taught you, let him be accursed. That's the
Yes.
doctrinal test. And these beings do not pass that test. They
Hmm.
deny that there's a personal God. I mean, people who've telepathically talked, communicate with them. They deny, since it's a God force, you can't sin against a force. Therefore, there's no sin.
Hmm.
Therefore, there's no judgment day. Therefore,
Wow.
there's no need for a savior, Jesus Christ. And Jesus is just an ascended guru with a lot of good ideas. And the way to improve in life is reincarnation. I mean, it's
Wow.
almost straight out of the New Age handbook is
Yep.
what they're teaching. The
Yep.
second test is Jesus, and you all know this. It says the fruits test. A bad tree cannot produce good fruit,
Hmm.
and these beings produce bad fruit. We give example after example of lives that have been destroyed by connecting with these beings, or even simply stopping and watching UFOs. I mean, they destroy people's lives. There's people, we interviewed a guy, he lost his family, he lost his job, he lost his finances, and basically he realized this was terrible. And
Hmm.
other beings, there's countless examples of people who said they've been taken up in these spaceships, whether it's just mentally or whether it actually happens. The point is, they are probed, they are experimented on. Women
Interesting.
have Women and men have their genitals fooled with. I mean, there's stories about this.
Wow.
So literally you can't, and even people who've just had what they call close encounters, the first kind. They've seen something with 500 feet, they stopped, they looked at a UFO. Not everybody, but a lot of them. There's a study online that was done by the US government. Headaches, fever, nosebleed, heart palpitations, burned skin, nightmares, brain problems, paralysis, perceived time loss, temporary blind. I mean, I can go on for another 15 things. So these are not friendly beings. Their fruits are bad fruits. Their
Amen.
doctrines bad doctrines. And the thing that's so scary about the Steven Spielberg film is that they whitewash the whole thing.
Yep.
They
Derek,
say that.
we need to wrap it up, and I would love to have you back on. The book is out in August. People can pre-order it now at UFOsandGodBook.com. And his website, Derek's website, is winterstarproductions.com. Derek, if we could get you back
Sure.
in August before the book comes out. This just went by way too fast, but it's so important for the body of Christ. We weren't ready for this conversation, but we need to know how to respond. God bless you. Thanks so much for your research and for your time today.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
God bless you, friends. And as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.